We light our chalice flame today, as chalice flames are lit in our brother and sister congregations across the world. We light our chalice this day in a week where the tragic level of 100,000 COVID deaths has now been recorded in the United Kingdom. With that loss in our minds, as our flame is lit, we will hear words adapted from the Reverend Christine Robinson. In this time of darkness, we light a flame of sharing, the flame of ongoing life. In this time when we search for understanding and serenity in the face of loss, we light this sign as our quest for truth, for meaning, for community. Welcome. Welcome to this meeting house today, the Sevenoaks Unitarian Meeting House. Now we gather today at the end of a very difficult week. It's the week in which, in the UK alone, the tragic milestone of 100,000 deaths from COVID-related illness has hit the population. Part of hundreds of thousands of COVID-related deaths across the world. And yet as we look back and remember all those people, all those grieving relatives, friends, those that knew, we look too to the future. Despite the issues with the EU this weekend over the vaccine, the reality of the vaccine, the hope that is coming in the future. And sometimes this can feel a bit like we're stuck in the middle. We have a past, we have a future, and we're neither one nor the other. I'd like to reflect a little today that we are somewhere. No, we're not in the past, no, we're not in the future, but we are in the now. This moment is the moment we are living in. It may be a period of transition, but it exists as a moment now too. And I'd like us to reflect a little on that today. We are gathered in the moment. We are gathered in the now. This time, this space are yours. I bid you a very warm welcome. We come now to a time of joys and concerns. When we're able to meet physically, we often take an opportunity to share our joys and concerns of the week or of recent times, and to light a candle for them. By not being able to meet physically, this has been very hard to do. But we'll take this moment now to light joys and concerns. COVID and the pandemic has changed everything in our personal lives, in the lives of our community, of the nation around us, and of the world. Hundreds of thousands of people lost, families bereaved, irreversible change. I light this candle for all those who have lost or grieve in this time of pandemic. I light a second candle for those moments of our lives over the last 8 to 10 months that we have not been able to share. Losses we have not been able to share in community. Joys we have not been able to share. I light this candle for those changes and those difficulties. I light a third candle for hope. Things are changing. Things are getting better. At least we can see the light of hope in the midst of these difficult times. This candle is for all those who keep us safe and are working to bring hope once more to our lives. Our final candle is a candle for each of you. You will have had moments in your lives recently of sadness, of joy, of personal uncertainty, of wonder. This is a candle for each of you. To reflect on your personal story. Our joys and our concerns we hold close to our hearts, and we share in beloved community. Amen. Our first hymn is a welcome and a joyful wake-up call, with music from our late friend David Dawson, and words calling on the weather, the seasons, the deeper truths. All these things belong to me. The words will be on your screens. Our first reading today is by the senior minister to the Unitarian Universalist congregation in San Francisco. It's the Reverend Vanessa Rush Southern. This is from her book of meditations, Miles of Dream, and is Get a Grip. And I'm very grateful to Vanessa for her permission to read this today. I am a sucker for symbols. Symbolic acts, symbolic moments, talismans. If one doesn't exist, I create it. For my 40th birthday, I went to a shop that sold French perfume and selected a signature scent, as the woman behind the counter described it. This was my way of saying to myself that I was maturing, ripening, that life would be beautiful and elegant in this next decade, not some slow decline. Shortly after my daughter was born, my husband and I picked out 2 woodblock prints to hang in our home. They depicted places we travelled together when our life was just the 2 of us. They could have been a reminder of what family life would put an end to, but that's not why we chose them. We chose them to serve as reminders of that we refuse to let go of, what made and still makes us happy, namely shared adventures and discovery. Now, recently I began another big transition. I left my job without another one, waiting in the wings, and something odd started happening. The handles began coming off my mugs. I start every day staring into the cabinet filled with these mugs. These are the vessels I have collected over the years of my life. And as I stare into them each morning, I cannot help but ask what this new day will be and who or what I want with me on my mug to get me started. Is it a day for dragons, for instance? Or one spent in the company of the bookish, bespectacled woman in the library? Should I begin this day with a reminder of our favourite family holiday spot, or recalled instead to the inn where that raucous reunion of friends happened one memorable weekend? These mugs are snapshots of my life, travels, my loves, people and places that are part of me. So it feels pretty significant that lately their handles have started falling off. 4 have gone down in a single month. Moreover, according to my research on the internet for things that hold hot drinks, gluing the handles back on isn't very smart. So each time one gives up the ghost, I am clear I will never again see it peering out from my kitchen cabinet. What does a lover of symbols make of all this? Well, it's probably coincidence. Heat stress from too many scalding hot cups of coffee might well be the cause, or maybe the dishwasher whose cycle runs longer than is good for the longevity of whatever mugs are made of these days. However, it is not lost on me that during this newest transition in my life, some things I have clung to are also being cleared out of my life. How I knew and understood myself is up for review. What success and a good life means to me are taking some radical turns. Our family may even be moving soon. So the truth is, the handles are falling off more than mugs these days. All the breakage, I suppose, is making room for what is to come. A symbol too, perhaps. I should tell you that I'm thinking about buying a travel mug to replace some of what I have lost. I'm drawn, for obvious reasons, toward the kind that doesn't have a handle. I like the idea of something you can carry with you easily, wherever you go. It seems a good symbol for how I may need to walk through this next chapter of life. The words of Vanessa Rush Southern. Let us come together in a time of stillness and of prayer. God of our hearts, whose oneness makes us one, in an unquiet world, let us be quiet. In an unpeaceful world, let us be peace. In an unkind world, let us be kind. In an unjust world, let us be just. In an unloving world, let us be love. O source of life and love, mystery beyond our ideas, as we gather this hour, we remember all of life's possibilities. We embrace the limits, grateful for a world awaiting the work of our minds and our hearts. We recall that our solitude and individuality is not all we are made for, that a wider communion of friendship beckons us. We struggle with a vision of a world made whole by loving justice. We forgive ourselves rather than denying the good that remains within us. We accept others rather than sitting in judgment over them. We constantly seek greater insight, greater honesty, and perpetual love. We seek the strength to enter into life fully, so that we can share and serve, so that we can bring light where there are shadows, and liberation where there is despair. Such is our prayer, our vision, our hope this day. If you wish to, please join with me in the words of the final prayer, following the words on screen. Spirit of life, light everlasting, may the glorious returning rays pierce the depths of our hearts. May they purify, gladden, lighten and enrich us. We each of us harbour dark corners in our hearts, places of sadness, places of unworthy thoughts, places of good things left undone. May the light we receive today restore us. May the light we receive today bring us peace. May the light we receive today bring us into new life. In light, we might find hope. Amen. Our second reading is a poem by the 20th century Welsh poet and Anglican priest R.S. Thomas. It's a quite well-known one of his, The Bright Field. And in this poem, R.S. Thomas refers to something which is the pearl of great price. It's a reference to a line in the book of Matthew, where Jesus is said to have claimed that the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking beautiful pearls, who, when he'd found one pearl of great price, went and sold all he had and bought it. It's a reference to the ultimate, to the perfect. So this is R.S. Thomas's The Bright Field, and we have a guest reader today, R.S. Thomas himself. This is The Bright Field.
The bright field. I have seen the sun break through to illuminate a small field for a while, and gone my way and forgotten it. But that was the pearl of great price, the one field that had the treasure in it. I realize now that I must give all that I have to possess it. Life is not hurrying on to a receding future, nor hankering after an imagined past. It is the turning aside like Moses to the miracle of the lit bush, to a brightness that seemed as transitory as your youth once, but is the eternity that awaits you.
Our second hymn is a traditional blessing, adapted and scored once more by the late David Dawson. With R.S. Thomas's path, by the bright field, still in our sights. May the road rise with you. The hand-painted lyrics by Janet will be on your screen. It's been a tough 10 months. It's been a very hard December, a very hard January. We reached a tragic milestone this month of 100,000 COVID-related deaths in the UK and 10 months of lockdown. For some, there have been losses not to do with COVID, but losses of those we love, of lives changed immeasurably. And sometimes we find ourselves unable to see forward with any certainty or pleasure. The past has brought us here, particularly the recent past, is not a place we wish to be. Yet today, the moment in which we are living and in which we are breathing, right now, this is the moment that only time we can, for certain, look for something brighter. It is the now. Today, the day we're living in, this is the moment of our lives that we can experience, that we can know where we are, what we are doing, and how we feel about it. Right now is the single moment you know about. We've lived lives up to now, but we cannot return to those moments. We have plans or ideas for the future, but those days are not with us yet. The only moments we really know are right now. Now, the American Unitarian minister Ralph Waldo Emerson once remarked that the roses under my window make no reference to former ones or better ones. They are for what they are. They exist with God today. There is no time to them. There is simply the rose. It is perfect in every moment of its existence. But we postpone or remember. We do not live in the present, but with reverted eye lament the past, or heedless of the riches that surround us, stand on tiptoe to foresee the future. We cannot be happy or strong until we too live with nature in the present, above time. Now, it's a reading that I've used many times before, but that doesn't weaken its truth. Emerson's trying to tell us that everything is discernible in the here and now. Everything we might need can be found right now in the immediate. And he summed this well himself when he said that what lies behind us and what lies before us are small matters compared to what lies within us. And it's to this point that we again return. It's that which lies within us that is the true guide to our actions and our effects in the world. But not just that. It's what lies within us now. Not yesterday, not the hoped for tomorrow, but now. Now, our first reading today, that piece by Vanessa Rush Southern, spoke of the dangers, perhaps, of trying to predict and prepare for the future by looking only at the past. Vanessa spoke of her kitchen cabinet of mugs and cups collected from jobs and trips and visits. Mugs that set out the ways of being that Vanessa had experienced in the past. Each day, the theme of the mug was chosen to help map the day ahead, the approach that might be followed. As Vanessa explained, is it a day for dragons, for instance, or one spent in the library? Should I begin this day reminded of our favourite family holiday spot, or recalled instead to the inn where that raucous reunion of friends happened one memorable weekend? But surely this is limiting. Surely this encourages simply a repeat of the successes and, more worryingly, the failures of before. A reliance on the past is an attempt to repeat something that, in reality, will never be repeated in quite the same way. We may not have moved our position, but the world around us has, and it's to the presence of today that we must surely orientate. The strange and uncertain world of the pandemic has shown us that we cannot repeat every day. In an unsettling way, the idea that the everyday is both true and untrue and the same is not there. We cannot relive yesterday, nor might we wish to. And tomorrow is doubly uncertain. And whilst we might try to prepare, it's to today that we must turn. But why now? Why not rely on reliving the past and looking to the future and how we might be in days and weeks and months and years hence? Well, in our second reading today, the poem by R.S. Thomas, read by R.S. Thomas, The Bright Field, we get a suggestion of the importance of the now. R.S. Thomas talks of seeing the sun break through to illuminate a small field. And he noticed it, but he didn't take it in. He instead went on his way and forgot long about it. And we've all done it. We all do it. Every day, I'm sure, we see something special, something amazing, something eye-catching, awesome. Yet we simply walk on. We may savour briefly, but we're looking on to wherever it is that we're headed, either physically or metaphorically, and we forget about it. Yet R.S. Thomas reflects and realises that the bright field he saw was the greatest thing he could have had at that particular moment. It was the beauty of the world, the connection with the most perfect creator and creation. A moment for R.S. Thomas of divine revelation. The sun shining onto the perfect screen of a small field. This was the connection. This was the pathway and the destination all in one. This was the moment to connect and to reflect. Life is, Thomas remarks, not hurrying on to a receding future, nor, he says, hankering after past and after imagined past. It's instead turning aside right now to the brightness of the sun, to the now of the intangible beauty around us and within us. The path was never as rosy as we fool ourselves sometimes, and the future will never work out how we plan it to. I think 2020 taught us all that one in harsh terms. Yet still, and this is so necessary, still there is a beauty we can hold and make our own right now. If only we can see. If only we can see rather than simply look. Now, in the poem, R.S. Thomas refers to the bright field as being the pearl of great price. And it was, as I mentioned earlier, a reference to a biblical passage, the pearl of great price. It refers to a very, very short parable that Jesus is said to have told his followers. It was a parable of just one sentence, which is pretty good going. And it was taken from Matthew's account of Jesus' life. And we're told that Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. On finding one pearl of great value, he went and sold all that he had and bought it." And again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. On finding one pearl of great value, he went and sold all that he had and bought it. Now, for R.S. Thomas, the bright field was that pearl of great price. The transitory yet brilliant moment of revelation when God, the Son, and the Self were united in glorious splendour. This was a moment for which all other moments in life could be traded. There was no need for anything else at that moment. No history, no future, just now. Right now. For Jesus and his disciples, of course, the reference was to the splendour of the kingdom of heaven. It was something against which nothing else had any real value. Only by putting everything together could you begin to imagine heaven's greatness. The merchant in the parable had to sell everything he owned to take possession of the greatest pearl. Now, from a Unitarian perspective, perhaps we might see this as a reference to recognising the value of the immediate. The point that Emerson was making, of the need to make this time right now, the moment of heaven on earth. And as for R.S. Thomas, a perfect moment now would be worth everything. You would sacrifice all you have to gain the greatest pearl. But would you? And is a view of a sunny field really worth everything we have? Of course, it's not really about a sunny field, but as lovely as they are, but it's about a connection to the moment. Connection to ourselves, our inner selves. Connection to the soul. Yet also a connection to something greater. To the all that is, right now. To understand and put into context who we truly are today and how we might ensure we are connecting to the world, to the universe, to the divine. It is, after all, only in this present moment that we can truly see ourselves and the possibilities of the future. We spend our lives reminiscing, for good and not so good, on the past and planning for the future. Yet all too often we miss the bright field, right under our noses. And how many of us have spent the pandemic looking both backwards and forwards, yet never quite managing to make the most of the now. We need to find time in our surprisingly continuing busy lives to make those connections, to draw the divine into our being, to commune with that intangible greatness of humanity, of the life spirit of God, however you might experience that. From that first reading again, it was Vanessa Rush Southern's eventual realization that the broken mugs were helping her to better understand that life is not lived in the past or the future. The way we live is defined at this moment of the sun breaking through and illuminating our very being. Be aware of each moment. Be aware of yourself. Savor this moment. The bright field is the treasure we need. Let us come now to a time of stillness and silence. As we settle our bodies, perhaps closing on our eyes, focusing on our breath. I shall read some words. We shall come together in stillness and quiet. Our stillness will be broken by music to continue our reflections. As we settle our bodies, some words by Emily Dickinson. Forever is composed of nows. Forever is composed of now. Some closing words. Spirit of life, we give thanks for your presence, for light and for love, for night and for change. Our worship is over, but our service continues. As we depart, may there be peace among us, now and forever. Amen.